What is up, family? Welcome to Mini Bytes session 31. Today's theme is light and darkness. My name is Erin McCluskey, and I'm a mindset and performance coach. If you'd like to hear more, learn more about my work, you can visit www.erinjewelcoaching.com. And that's all one word, ERINJEWELL, two L's, coaching.com. So today's theme is light and darkness. And notice I didn't say light versus darkness because I do not believe ultimately it's a fair battle between the two. And I'll explain more what I mean about that. And this theme is coming up for me today, and it has been really something that's played out for me over the last 5-6 years since entering into the most recent chapter of the epic journey I call this life experience. I find that the more my light shines from within. So what does that really mean? You know, people say, oh, your light shines bright, or you have this aura about you, or, you just seem so positive, so happy. For me, when I talk about the light that shines from within, really what I'm talking about is I feel like I'm thriving, and that shows up in my environment. So the more work I do to cultivate that experience of thriving, it kind of shows up in my world in a few different ways. Perhaps I look happier, or perhaps I sound happier. It tends to show up that way. I have more energy, I'm more productive. So a lot of the work I do is about removing the layers and the masks, any obstacles, any old stories, any old notions that kind of turn into that fortress or that castle that I build around myself that kind of keeps that light dimmed. A lot of my work is around allowing those stories and masks to be released. And if you work with me, you're pretty familiar with this. And you know that that's really the foundation of my work is what can we be doing to truly feel successful and to feel like we are thriving here and not just surviving. And in order to do that work, in order to allow those masks and those layers to fall away, it involves what I'll just simply call shadow work. And shadow work can take on a lot of different meanings. It's used in a lot of different practices in the shamanic world of medicine and ceremonies and rituals. There's a lot of different understandings of the term shadow work. For me, shadow work is about looking at those parts of myself that maybe once upon a time I found to be very embarrassing or just not pretty parts of myself that I felt unique in, like, oh, I have these things, these behaviors, these stories, these tendencies, these thoughts that I better not share with anybody because only I have these experiences. And then I hide them and then I push them down, further down into the innermost part of my being. And then I don't do anything about them and they fester and they grow and they turn into things over time. So my work's been about surfacing those areas. And again, those of you who work with me know a lot about my story and how that's shown up in my story. And the more I surface these things that I once hid, the more my light shines through, the more energy I have, the more productive I feel, the more I see the gifts that I have. And that is also my journey. I still don't know all the gifts that I possess. And as I continue on this journey, I learn these things. So all of these, that light that shines within that comes out is as a result of a lot of this shadow work. So back to today's theme of light and darkness. So what happens is as my light shines brighter, it seems to draw in more of the opportunities for doubts and distractions, which basically is all the same thing to me. So darkness, doubts, distractions, these are all things that show up in our lives to try to keep us from shining our light more fully. So how do these things show up, these doubts, distractions, this darkness in my life? In my life, first and foremost, they show up in the form of people. So perhaps challengers or people that exhibit behaviors toward me in an attempt to sound or act hurtful. Perhaps these are people that are close to me. Perhaps these are people that I've never met before. Generally, when my light is shining brighter, to keep it very simple, I find that there are more people in my life that show up sort of to question that. And it's not really something that I think they're aware of. I think it's more as their journey plays out, this role that they have in my life. And I find it's those times where it's almost like the people in my life that show up as quote unquote like not liking me are really the ones that I'm meant to feel the most love for. And that doesn't necessarily mean I'm chasing after these people or I'm trying to physically in the physical realm, so verbally communicate the love I have for them, but it might mean something like I might pray for them a little bit more. They might be in my mind during prayer time each day a little bit more, or perhaps I might think a positive thought about them rather than a negative thought. Anything I can do to draw more light out of the situation. Another way that the darkness, doubts, or distractions show up for me is in my own head and with my own stories. So sometimes when, quote unquote, things are going really well, which is kind of the same for me as far as like when my light's shining, I'll tend to have old stories or old patterns of thought kind of get highlighted and show up more predominantly in my thought process. And I'm getting to a point where I'm starting to recognize that more, where I can take that step back, recognize it's a potential doubt or distraction, which I equate with darkness, and then I can surround those thoughts in acceptance, and then I can sometimes share those thoughts with other people so they lose their power, and then they eventually fall away. So kind of wrapping up today, light and darkness, we basically have the more we shine our light, the more we experience those feelings of success, we can expect an increase in doubts and distractions to show up, but just to continue to trust that these are part of our journey, and the only response that we we can have any response we want, we can have a choice to respond with love. And sometimes that means stepping back physically and praying more for the individual or for the old thoughts, and it can mean a lot of other things as well. So thanks for your time today. Love you all. Make it a great one.